Hi, I'm Suki. Welcome to Getting Psychic, where you can listen to me use myself to test the theory that anyone can get psychic. Hello and welcome to Getting Psychic. I'm here with America's sweetheart, Megan of Solar Glow Meditations. Megan fell into dowsing by accident and has amassed a huge following with her charm and divination. Megan practices Reiki healing, provides tarot or oracle deck sessions, and you can also book a session with her just for help in your psychic development. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me
My pleasure. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
too. These are like my favorite thing to do.
Oh, good. You're already welcome back. Okay, so how the heck did we end up here? Did you have spiritual inclinations in your early life or any like strange or amazing stories from your early life?
Yeah, I have like a couple like very vivid memories of having deja vu and like remembering like 30 seconds of what my life just was. So that's always sort of been a thing, but I wasn't like really into the spiritualism until I sort of fell into where I'm at now. Um, so yeah, no, my one thing that's always been sort of around is aliens. Like growing up, I was like, they can't not exist. Like they must be real. And so, like, every once in a while I would always come back to like I need to go research and deep dive aliens until 2 a.m. on a Saturday night because they must be real, right? And so I spent a lot of years like trying to convince myself of that until we landed here and now I think they're real. So
Yeah, I feel ya. Yeah, that's really funny. You know what I noticed? I was doing like as little preliminary research as I could because I want to learn about you more organically, but I looked back and on your Instagram page specifically, your first dowsing rod video was pretty recent. It was June 29th, 2023, right? And the day that I launched this podcast was like 11 days later. And I
wow.
thought that, yeah, I thought that that was a funny thing. And I think we probably have this like rapid development in common.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like the last 2 years has been kind of a wild ride for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm impressed you know the date because whenever I think about it, I think about like when like social media really blew up for me and like when I finally monetized YouTube. And it didn't feel like that happened until about like a year ago around this time, maybe like January, February. And so I'm always like, oh yeah, I've only been doing this for a year, but oh my gosh, it's been almost two.
I mean, I'm sure it took like a minute to build. Your first questions were, in case you forgot, about Reiki.
Oh yes, yes, I do
And then I
remember
th
that.
and then I think your next video was about aliens, and I was like, "Yes, that's exactly where I would have gone with that."
That's awesome.
Okay, in early life, did you have encounters or just the sense or the understanding that you believed that there had to be more than just us?
Looking back, I have one very vivid memory of like trying to fall asleep and my grandma used to buy me like those little precious moment figurines and I heard one of them move around on my shelf and like looking back on it now I'm like that was totally aliens. Like that wasn't a ghost or anything. So I have that. I've doused about that too and like asked questions and yes, that did happen, but that was the only time, but I didn't know what it was at the time. Like I would have said ghost if somebody had asked me and I wasn't going to say anything because I was like, "Oh my gosh, nobody's going to believe me."
Absolutely, yeah. Isn't
Yeah.
it weird how we, like, can reflect on something like that and then sort of just have this understanding
Yes.
like you knew what it was.
Totally.
It's just interesting to me. So it seems like all of your spiritual endeavors are your day job, which is amazing. Um, but I don't know, maybe you have a top secret office job that I haven't
It's not top
noticed?
secret. I do have an office job.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes.
Well,
I work
okay.
as a business intelligence manager, so I'm like making charts, coding, all that kind of
Okay.
stuff. So,
Amazing. Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and there also is a crossover between spirituality and technology.
Yes.
Um,
The number of times I use like spirit to help me guide and find like nuggets of information in the data is kind of remarkable.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I couldn't tell based on your website if this was your full-time gig or if you did have a day job, but okay, this is brings me to, like, this interesting, um, thought that I've been having lately. I've been thinking about how and I would love your insights. Like, I've been thinking about how a lot of people on their spiritual path, probably ourselves included, um, like to refer to their non-spiritual endeavors or parts of their lives as, like, their 3D job, for example, right? And it's
Yes.
like, "Oh, my 3D this is less than my spiritual practice or my meditation practice," and so on. And I just recently had this thought that it's probably better if we start looking at both of them, um, the normal 3D stuff and the spiritual things as part of a whole in our experience. Um, like truly one doesn't have to be more magical than the other. Do you have any insights on this?
Yes, so I don't call it my 3D job, I call it my left brain job.
Oh,
So
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like the more analytical, like data side, and like all of solar glow meditations is really my right brain job. It's like going with the flow of energy, and there doesn't necessarily have to be science or data to back these things up. It's just this knowing and feeling. And it feels like these two things cross over very nicely. It's just how you speak about them in which world varies, right? Like I can't go into work and say, yeah, spirit told me that I need to go look at this date for this transaction or whatever it may be. It's like, hey, I was looking through the data and I saw this anomaly. I went to go research it further. So that's kind of been like, I sometimes it feels like I lead a double life. It's just the same thing coming at it from different perspectives.
Yeah. It's kind of like physical and non-physical. Like they all are part of what we came here to experience.
Yes.
So I think life can be way more interesting if we stop separating them.
I totally agree. And it's sort of interesting because like the left brain job, okay, with the spiritual stuff, it's very much like I'm feeling into the energy, I'm doing what feels right, I'm going with what my guides are telling me. Whereas like the left brain job, it's okay, I have a manager that's giving me this project, I need to go do this thing, we need to think in this very structured way in a way that benefits the company. And that doesn't necessarily always align with like what feels good or what is. And so there's this like sort of challenge of like trying to marry those things two things together and either like changing my perspective about it or um being able to like speak up and say something and say, hey, this is really not something that I think we should do for these reasons. It's very it's an interesting dichotomy.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do your left brain coworkers know about your right brain career?
Yes, a handful of them do. It's not something like I speak openly about because it's like I don't want to isolate anybody. I realize that for most of the world, this is very like esoteric and out there, and so I'm very mindful. I don't talk about this at work unless somebody asks me about it, and even then, it's like a 3 minute conversation. Okay, let's move on to work things. So
Totally. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I feel that. I catch myself slipping sometimes, and I'm like, "Reel it in."
Do you have a left brain job as well?
I do. I'm a small business owner, and, like, my coworkers, I'm just like there's so many times where I wanna be like, "Well," like,
Right?
go there, and I'm like, "Stop, stop, don't do it." Let's do a little dowsing rod 101.
Yeah.
How did you stumble into using them?
So this was at a time where I had like just gone through like this giant spiritual awakening and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I know this to be real because I felt it in my body." And so it was like this moment of exploration and I had downloaded TikTok at the time. And if you know TikTok, like the algorithm is like so on point. And so they sent me videos of other creators doing dowsing rods and I was like, "I can do that." So I tried it and I was like, "Oh, okay. This feels a little weird. I'm a little nervous. Let's go for it." And so I did. I was like kind of exploring the social media platforms at that time. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to use this as a way to keep myself accountable to this practice, to this spirituality, to continue to try it and grow and develop for my own personal benefit. And so it's all
Yeah.
everything
Is
that happened there.
totally. Is dowsing a form of divination?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And so what are some other forms of divination if you wanna give my audience the scoop on that?
Yeah, so the really common one that's just adjacent to dowsing is pendulums. So, like a little rock on a string. Same thing, yes, no questions, or you can get a mat that you can direct the answers in front of. You also have things like tarot or oracle card readings, is very common. You can do muscle testing just with your body, like show me what a yes and a no looks like, and have your arms, legs, muscles do whatever. Um, I'm trying to think of what else divinations there are. Can you think of any off the top of your head?
Oh my god, I have a funny one that came up this week. My friend has, like, weirdly good luck with scratch off lottery tickets.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and this week she was like, "I gotta tell you something. Sometimes I do this thing where if I get a scratch off lottery ticket, I say, 'If I'm supposed to be doing this, I'm gonna win more than $20.' And I was like, "Oh my god, you're doing scratch off divination."
That's amazing. Does she win frequently?
Yeah. Yeah. She that specific question, she won $50. So,
I mean, it could be though, because spirit talks to you in all different ways. I don't see
yeah.
why not.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, I think it's hilarious. But okay, so I wanted to ask you, it's my impression that our guides are there to do just that, guide us, right?
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily going to give us clear direction, like, do this right now, right? So when you're asking, when you're using divination and you're asking yes or no questions, and you ask, for example, like business advice, like, should I work with Tom or whomever? What kind of response do you get?
Well, so there's a couple of things. I've used divination as a way to further develop like my psychic and mediumship abilities, and so I actually see and hear spirit now.
Mhm.
Not necessarily something I understood when I started, um, but then there's kind of ways to like dig into the question. The should can be really nebulous. Like,
Yeah.
is it in my highest and best good? Is this uh, something I should do because there's a lesson I need to learn, even though if it's painful? Like there's a whole lot of different ways to sort of interpret should.
Yeah.
So I'd like to try and frame the questions maybe a little bit differently. Like, will I learn this lesson if I work with this person? Yes or no.
Yeah.
um, and then the other thing that can be hard about that is like it kind of percolates into the future a little bit, and the future is like so fluid. And so it's like, okay, yes, this is most likely to happen, but things could still shift because you can make choices that kind of change that outcome. So it doesn't always necessarily work out as expected. And so expectations can be like a really hard thing to kind of level set when you're doing those sorts of things.
Yeah. I like that. It is kind of like you're gearing your questions toward the way that you know that they communicate.
Yes, exactly.
Like, I feel like they communicate in, like, I don't know, like, stories or limericks or, like, they really have
Metaphors.
yeah, metaphors, lots of metaphors. It's really interesting. So, like, give me an example then of, like, you're at a fork in the road, and you're
Sure.
like, "I need to decide if I should do this or this, and it's important," and you're, like, in a pickle, and you're not sure for some weird reason. How do you ask?
So I start to like break down all the things that are like really important to me about that situation. Like for career, for example, like should I take this job? I don't know. What are the things that you are looking for in the outcomes of those jobs, or either
Yeah.
taking it or not? So, will I make more money? Will I have a better work life balance? Will I get more vacation time? Will the benefits be better? Will I like my coworkers more? Will I have more like personal satisfaction from the job I'm doing? And so it's kind of backing up a little bit and like defining those criteria of what's most important to you, because every job is going to be a give and take no matter what it is. And so figuring out what is most important to you is probably step 1, and then you can ask about that and start to get guidance. And, like, with the dowsing rods, they'll kinda give you, like, a strong, "Yes, absolutely, that's what it's gonna do," versus, like, a, yeah, kind of, I guess," and you can start to get some nuance that way and then start making decisions based on that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that perspective. It's like, in a weird way, you get a way higher understanding of what even you actually want.
Yes, exactly. Well, and I think it helps take out some of that, like, yes and no can be so nebulous, like, it's a true or false answer, like, there's more gray within that kind of outcome, and so being able to kinda dig a little bit deeper, I think is really, really helpful.
Yeah, it's like in the scheme of life, it's like, be careful what you wish for keeps coming to mind while we're talking, and
Yes,
it's sort of like, will I make more money? Yes, but hold up, buddy. There's way more beyond that.
exactly. Like, what's the cost?
Yes, yeah, that's cool. Have you ever felt addicted to asking your dowsing rod questions?
Um, I wouldn't go so far as to call it an addiction, I definitely get more inclined to ask more frequently, especially when things are very, like, turbulent or uncertain,
Yeah.
um, but yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, addiction has, like, negative implications, but really, I was like, "Huh, I feel like I've known people who get really caught on their pendulum or something, and I can absolutely see why."
Well, and what I noticed, like, I do this with the tarot cards every day too. Like, I'll draw a card and I'll post it to my Instagram stories and, like, here's your card for the day. And, like, sometimes I'm like, I don't like this answer. Let me keep going. And then I did this yesterday. Spirit was like, no, stop it. You need to focus. Like, quit, put the cards down. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, totally, I've done that. I've, like, done a tarot spread and been like, I must have slipped up somehow."
Right.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I feel like there's, like, a little crackle coming from your end.
Oh, sorry. I'm playing with the rods.
Ah, okay, they're conducting.
Sorry. Sorry.
That's so funny. Yes, by all means. But yeah, I was like, what is that interference? Okay, so do you have any stories of crazy phenomenon occurring while using your rods? I mean, clearly you just said that you really advanced your psychic and clairvoyant abilities. So can you give us examples of some things that have developed since you started really digging in?
Yeah, actually, I didn't even notice this, but a lot of folks that watch my YouTube videos have started pointing out when there's orbs that come on the screen. I was like, oh, I didn't believe it at first. And then I was like, I'm going to go ask the rods, like, are these really orbs? Yes, they are.
That is so cute. Every time I hear about orbs, I'm like, ah.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just there's like that acute quality to it.
Yeah.
Anything else weird?
Um, I'm trying to think. Sometimes there will be like voices that will show up, especially on the videos. Um, I have to go back and listen to them because I don't always necessarily hear them during the time, but that's happened quite frequently. And
Wait,
I don't
what did you say? Voices?
yeah, it's not all the time, but like sometimes people will hear extra voices in the backgrounds of my videos.
Oh, I'm gonna have to go back and listen.
Yeah. Check the
So,
comments because it's not every video, but like if there is, people will talk about it in the comment section.
oh my gosh. Okay, I've never looked at your comment session, but this brings me to an area of interest.
Yeah.
I see you as pretty gutsy.
Thank you.
You are um addressing topics and basically asking questions about ascended masters that religions have been formed around. And there are a lot of people with like really strong opinions or bonds to like a certain narrative. Can you reflect on what that's been like or what kind of responses you've received from those things that might be polarizing?
Yeah. So most of the time it comes in the form of like hate comments or like
Oof.
like there's a lot of that and like my DMs can get kind of mean like hey you have to take this video down because it's rude and I'm like no you're some random on the internet so am I like no I am allowed to have my voice and speak, and I can have spirit speak through me. So that's kind of the stance I've taken. I think the probably the scariest and worst responses have been threats. Like, I've had death threats come through. I've
Oh,
had threats of, doing me bodily harm, like, sexually, that is gross. Um, so that part can be pretty terrible, but usually when that happens, like, those accounts get blocked immediately. For one, they get reported for bullying, they usually get taken down, and then police reports, of course, get filed. So that's happened, like, less than 5 times, I would say, but it is something that happens. Most of the time, what comes through is people, uh, being very, like, unwilling to hear or listen to other viewpoints, I guess, and I view this as, how do I say this? Sorry, tough topic, it's a good question, though. Um, I view what I'm doing as a way to open people up a little bit more spiritually. And so part of that, not intentionally on my part, is talking about really tough subjects. And I don't edit what spirit sends through. I get surprised by a lot of the questions myself. And a lot of times, what happens is I have to pause and reflect and say, okay, why did spirit answer that way? Like, that's not what I expect. Why? And so it becomes sort of this like self reflective tool, maybe a little bit of tool for like shadow work and trying to get down deeper into that. And that's sort of what I view this platform as being. So if people end up in the comments really triggered and really hateful, what I'm hoping happens, and I know this is going to be a spectrum of responses, is that some people will stop and say, well, I followed her for a really long time. I like all her content. Why is this suddenly bothering me? And maybe turn it around on themselves, because I am just like the vessel through which spirit is speaking. I'm not saying these answers are right or wrong. It's why. And having that kind of curiosity to dive deeper. And so, yes, those sensitive topics can be really hard to cover, and the attention can be a lot and very hateful. But in the same breath, there's also this little sliver of hope and like bright white light that comes through from people saying, I've never had permission to explore otherwise before. And so I get this response on every video that, especially those hot button topic issues of like, um, I didn't know that it could be anything but this. And I say this like, I get this a lot from women and girls, especially because religion is generally patriarchal. And so it's like, oh, I didn't know that maybe I don't have to marry within my faith, or maybe I don't have to wear this specific thing, or hey, maybe I'm not going to hell because hell doesn't exist. And it's those people that really keep me going, because I'm not telling you how to live your life. I'm just saying it doesn't have to be how you were taught, and that there are other perspectives out there. And so maybe just like taking that step back and being able to reflect on, where did this belief come from? Why am I feeling this fear? Like, how can I remove this reaction from my life because I don't logically agree with it? And how can I get somewhere else? So that was a lot. But yeah,
that's why I asked. I want a
thank you.
lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, ugh, I'm I'm so sorry that you've had to deal with that, and I think that's the kind of thing that comes from making those bold. I hate that that's a reality,
Yeah.
but I see so much strength in you just moving forward and continuing to do it. It's like fucking awesome.
Thank you.
I'm really impressed. And you never actually share, you're not sharing your own opinions ever.
I don't. I will, if you like listen to my Instagram stories, I talk about every day and we'll share some of like my opinions, but I try and keep my actual opinions out of it for the most part. People guess, but especially for my facial reactions in the video, like
You're like,
sometimes it's
"Oh."
really obvious. But
Right. Okay, so where are your questions coming from? Are they coming from your audience?
yes, I have a link to submit a question via Google Forms. My question list is currently 40,000 long and counting.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so everybody has so many questions, and there's, like, a lot of themes that get pulled out of there, like, religion is really a hot issue, which is why I kinda did this religion series most recently, but yeah. And then, like, just how the universe works, like, what happens after we die, like, aliens, like, all the kinda things that fit into this kinda spiritual, esoteric topic, I guess.
Yeah. It's so interesting to me because, like, okay, people find your page and it's kind of puzzling. Like, there must be this innate sense of belief in what you're doing.
Yeah,
Why would you get angry if you were watching this? First of all, you're there watching it, interesting. Secondly, like, why would you get angry if you completely dismissed it? So, I don't know, it's a weird conundrum. I bet that you're really opening things up for a lot of people.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing, like, even most recently, this has kind of been happening like a handful of times. People will say, I've agreed with everything that you've said up until now. Like it's always felt right to me, but suddenly you stumbled across this one topic and I don't follow anymore because I don't believe that. And so it makes me a little sad that folks aren't taking the time to pause and reflect why that's not the case. But I love to hear that most of what I've said has resonated with folks in that way. Like there is this sort of like innate understanding in a lot of people that what's happening and what I'm showing is truly from spirit. So,
Yeah. Okay, so anyone can do this,
absolutely.
although I believe that how you hold your energy is important
Mhm.
and maybe part of why it it's very clear for you.
I possibly. So this is hard for me to answer because I've only ever lived as me, and this is just how I've kind of always been. Like, there's certainly like this confidence that has come from like gaining this platform and speaking about this so frequently. But anybody can do it, but who you get to answer sort of depends on where you vibrate. So there's been like one time where I felt like there was an entity I was speaking to that I didn't know who I was speaking to, and it didn't feel of love and light. So I put the rods down and walked away. But a lot of times when people are like trying to like sneak in or not sneak in, like trying to use the dowsing rods and are very like shy and kind of curious about it, but not a lot of confidence behind it. Like, understandably, it's a new thing. People get really worried about having like negative entities come through. And so part of it is just do it when you're happy, do it when you've meditated and grounded and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm not sure I answered your question. I just started rambling. Sorry.
Listen, Megan, I don't even know what my question was, so it's cool.
Okay.
Uh, so I've always sort of looked at forms of divination, like muscle testing, or when you're holding something, or whatever, like a pendulum or the dowsing rods. I always just assumed that what we were doing, because we were making contact with our own physical body, like I always assumed that it was sort of a connection with higher self.
It can be.
Like the muscle testing, like, oh, that's what I really want deep inside. Can you explain the difference between that and when like Saint Francis or someone comes in and starts moving your rods? Like what's the deal?
Yeah. So I feel the energy differently when I have different entities coming through. Um, I don't know that I have like a general of like who you're talking to for the first time, like who that normally is. Um, I would say that, like, I would set the intention to set talk with your higher self, but even like muscle testing and such, um, if you're allowing entities in your space that don't necessarily belong here, it might not be your higher self that's answering. So it's possible with any form of divination, in my personal opinion. But as long as you set the intention with who you're going to talk to, that's who you're going to talk to. So,
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so do you set the intention to talk to different people all before every session?
I do most of the time. Like, if I'm dowsing to myself, I'll just see who comes through, and usually it's my higher self. Archangel Michael likes to come through a lot, like, he's my buddy. Um, but then usually when I'm doing it for, like, the videos and such, it usually has to do with what the questions or the topics are about. So, we're asking about Jesus. Jesus came through, like, that makes sense to me. And there's been times where I'd, like, started asking questions and I had no idea who I was talking to, but I'm like, "Okay, let's go with it." And then for when I get down the list of questions, it's about a specific person, and I'm like, "Oh, is this who we're talking to?" Yes, yes, it was. So that's kinda cool.
Yeah, that's super fun.
Yeah.
You've made videos on everything from Bigfoot to mermaids to underground aliens, angels, werewolves, religions. How often are you surprised by the answers that you get?
Anymore, not too often. Mostly because a lot of the questions that I'm asking, especially now, are like adjacent or repeats of things that I've done in the past. So very often it doesn't surprise me. Actually, just this last week, one that did surprise me was AI going to change what it means to be human? And I think even at the end of like the short that got posted to the socials, you could see my face be like, "What?" I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I like that or not."
What was the answer? Yes?
Yes,
Oh, woof.
I know,
Well,
but there's like sort of an expectation that goes along with that. Like, is AI going to make us more mechanical, or is it just going to make our lives easier, or like, are
right.
we going to become less capable because this tool is here and we don't have to think as hard? I don't know.
Yeah, I think you needed more questions, Megan.
I think so too. I was just so surprised, and I have my script that I didn't have an
Yes.
opportunity to.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like, well, yeah, I guess that makes sense because like it already has.
Absolutely, yeah.
I did not use AI to generate any of your interview questions.
That's
F
okay.
FYI. What's the most important thing that you've learned from your experience with the rods? Not necessarily even just questions, but broadly. Like, what do you think is a big takeaway for you?
I think well, so kind of my theme as of late has been like just perspective. Perspective matters so much. Like you can ask the same question to different entities and get two different answers because they're coming from different places. And that doesn't necessarily mean that either one is wrong. It's just the context from which they're answering. And so it the analogy I like to make around this is if I ask you what color the sky is, most people would say blue, but that's not always true. It can be gray and pink and purple and orange and blue and like a whole rainbow of colors. You can have a rainbow in the sky. Um, and so saying that the sky is red is not necessarily in conflict with saying that the sky is blue. Both things can be true and they can be true at the same time. It's just a matter of your perspective and where you're looking. And so I think that's really important to keep in mind, especially with the lack of nuance in answering a yes no question. Um, if it bothers you, why? Like, keep having that curiosity and that play to kind of go a little bit deeper and figure it out until either you understand or are satisfied that you understand. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
yeah.
I think a lot of us are walking around very unwittingly afraid that we are like getting it wrong.
And there is no wrong. There is no right. Like, it's all made up.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like a lot of your questions, you've tapped into that and you're like, is it bad to be vegetarian? No. Is it bad to eat meat? No. You like
Yeah.
you find the the sort of through line that it's like you can make all the choices and it's okay.
Yeah. What matters is how you feel about it and like how you react to it. Like it's your life, your perspective, you control that narrative.
Yeah. Okay, so what have you learned about people through this work?
Um, Good question. Uh, At first, everybody is, like, so nice, especially folks that stop me on the street, say hello. I love that, and yeah, it's
Well, that's good that you're focusing on the nice ones because you've, like, had to call police. So,
yeah.
there's
Yes,
perspective right there.
yeah. Uh, Definitely. I try to focus on the positive because you like, there's, like, this negativity bias, like, one bad apple can ruin the whole barrel, but you don't have to let it. Take the apple out when you figure out it's bad. Like,
Yeah,
it's fine. Um,
totally.
but I'm trying to think. So I've been doing client sessions, like private one-on-one sessions now for like 2.5 months. And they're all so interesting, but they're also different. But I think what it comes down to ultimately, I don't know that I can like sum up any of these experiences into one thing, but it's really about like being able to know yourself and like have confidence in that. I don't know.
No, yes, that was great. Yeah,
Maybe that's me, but, like, projecting back on myself, like, yeah, I don't know.
no, yeah. These I understand these questions are, like, very broad, and answering them on the fly is kind of just meant more to, like, see what see what comes, you know?
Yeah.
Not like you would have that answer prepared, but is there anything profound that you've learned about yourself through this work?
Yeah, I didn't realize I was so well connected. Like, I've had readings before, and they always say that, and I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about. This is just how everybody walks around." But then, like, having gone out there and, like, gotten feedback and experience from all these people, they're like, "Oh, no, you're really well connected." Like, the ones that the things that always stand out to me in, like, these one-on-one sessions is actually, like, when I'm able to identify, like, a body part that hurts on them, and they're like, "How did you know that?" And and I'm like, I just like,
Feel it.
right, like, can you not, like, do that? And so it's this is my experience, so it's kinda weird to me that people can't do that because I don't know anything else. Like, I mean, certainly there's, like, putting your blinders on and just deciding, like, "I'm going to ignore this." Like, I do that with, like, my sense of smell, like, I can smell things from spirit, I shut that down because I just don't want to. Most of the time it stinks.
Yeah,
Um Which maybe I shouldn't because, like, should open, experience the world, all that kind of stuff, but yeah.
yeah. Okay, so does that mean that you've been feeling other people's pain for your whole life or more expanded more recently?
It's expanded more recently, and it's not that I necessarily feel their pain, it's I'm able to perceive where it is.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
One of these things that I've sort of been, kinda struggling with and, because this is all still, like, in development, I'm still learning,
Yeah.
um is when you do like psychic and mediumship connections, you connect to that person's energy. And so a lot of times what happens even before my client sessions for the day is I'm like having this nudge all day and it's something about my client. Like yesterday it was I kept seeing angel numbers, which I haven't paid attention to angel numbers in a while. Like occasionally they'll pop up, but it's not my thing. But all day yesterday was like angel number, angel number, angel number. And then I start talking to my client. She's like, "Do they talk to me through angel numbers?" And I'm like, "Yes, they've been showing these to me all day."
They sure do.
Yes. And
Um,
there was one gal that was like, I just wanted to break bread all day. And I was like, oh, we had a past life together as bakers in England. Like, okay.
yeah, and
And
that
so
just
it's like,
popped in your head.
yeah, but it's like being able to, like, I need to work on setting energetic boundaries so that, like, I'm paying attention to me and not necessarily what my client is doing. So,
Yeah. They're supposed to be like portals.
okay.
So, you see one, it essentially, like, opens a portal, and you can use it for, say, manifestation.
Yeah,
So, see one and put yourself I like to say, like, "Oh, put yourself in the energy that you most wanna be in."
I like that.
And so you can just use that as a little, like, blast, like, "Oh, okay, got it." And it'll, clearly, like, bring more of that energy to you. But that's a fun game when you're driving. Angel number portals. Okay, maybe this is weird. Is there anything that's been on your mind that you would like to talk about? Wait, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
This whole podcast exists because I believe that everyone has psychic abilities, and it was just a way of sort of using myself to walk people through that experiment. You know, I've always been intuitive, and I wanted to show people what it's like to actually access more quote unquote psychic gifts, right? So it's totally worked. And so I think I like to think of my audience as probably people that are maybe like curious or newly on their path, or um super psychic and just want, like, would just enjoy like candid conversation about it. So knowing that, is there anything that comes to mind that you want to talk about?
Yes. So one of the things that I always try to embody in like these videos and just doing this work is playfulness and fun. And I use this, I guess, in gratitude too. I'm always saying thank you. Um, but really keeping the vibe high and keeping yourself in like this like happy state, even if it's like manufactured, like make it up, fake it till you make it, and just keep going because eventually it will become real, even if it starts out fake. Um, and I'm not saying that like about the dowsing rods at all. I'm saying this about like your attitude towards the whole thing. Like I like asking silly questions and people get so upset, like, why are you wasting spirit's time? And I'm like, because I think it's funny.
Hell yes, 100%.
Yeah, like of course I want to know if a sushi is a burrito. Like, does it matter? No, but I think it's funny.
Yeah, same. No, that's so weird that you say that because I feel exactly the same way, and I think it's so important to laugh at this, and people get really serious about their spiritual endeavors, and, you know, cool. So be it for you, but, like, I need to laugh at myself. I need to, like, laugh at this whole thing. There's, like, 5 times a day where I will be having a conversation and I say, "Oh boy, did I just say that?" You know, some whenever I'm saying, like, super out there shit, which is daily, I'm like, "Oh boy, yep, okay. I can both be a spiritual person, live in this world, and think it's funny."
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I love that you feel that way too, and it does come through. I mean, that's part of, like, the funnest part of your videos is, like, your energy and your tone, and, like, the "yes, thank you" part is also always, like,
Oh,
it's
thank you.
it's like, what do I wanna say? It's not contagious, but there's something about it that's like, it's funny, it's uplifting.
Thank you.
Do people say that to you on the street? Like, "Yes,
Yeah,
thank you."
they do.
Like your
Or like the
barista?
comment section, especially for a while, was like, I just love how she says thank you, like all the time.
Yeah,
Thank
spirit
you.
likes it if you're polite, okay?
Yeah.
Um, okay, what is your biggest goal right now? Do you have any aspirations in the spiritual realm?
Yes. I think my biggest aspiration is to figure out what the heck is next. Um, y- as you mentioned, I sort of lead a double life with a day job in this space, and I know I can't do both things forever, but I don't want to give either one up. And so it's very much this like waiting pattern of what comes next. Like, I'm sort of maxed out on what I can do with this channel right now in the space and the time that I have. And I think continuing to do that for as long as I can and feels good, that's absolutely what I want to do. But there's so many different ways that this could grow, like doing more client sessions, maybe making an oracle or a tarot deck, maybe writing a book, doing more speaking appearances. Like there's all sorts of things I could do. I just don't have the space for it.
Oh
But
my
at the
god,
same
I
time, like I
yeah,
love my day job and like it's amazing, so I don't want to give that up either. So,
dude. You just need a lot more time.
Right.
I love that you love your day job. That's
Thank you.
very fortunate and super positive, but you're in that place that a lot of, like, self-built people or small business people find themselves, and it's like, ugh, the right before the shift happens is the stickiest spot because you're, like, not ready to totally jump ship of the safety that you have created.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Although I guarantee if we talk in a year, you'll have, like, published a book and gone fully jumped off the precipice.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I hope that.
Yeah, no, there's there's nothing stopping you. Okay, so, I mean, you've got the rods in your hands. We should probably play with them,
Yeah.
right?
Do you have some questions you want to ask? Before we get into it, let me just see who we're talking to.
Oh, yeah.
If you're with me and willing to answer questions, could you cross the roads for yes? Thank you. Could you open wide for no? Thank you. Could you point to the direction of your energy? Is Archangel Michael coming through? Yeah.
Michael, you silly goose.
He's been hanging for a minute, but okay. Yeah, yeah. Ask away, whatever you would
Okay.
like.
Okay, so I was talking to my friend earlier today, and she's extremely clairvoyant, and I was like, "Do you have any questions for Megan Solar Glow?" And she was like, "Yeah, ask if there are amphibian ETs."
Yes, thank you.
I mean, no surprise there because she saw them, so
I've never seen them before. I'm seeing like froggish head going on, but I can't tell what's going on with the body. I would love to know their name, but I don't know that I'm gonna get that right now.
oh, you just got a random yes? They're like, "Yeah, they have one."
Yeah.
Okay, wait. What's a good question? Like, should if we wanted to figure out, like, kind of generally, like, where they're from?
He's showing me the star system, but I don't know my stars at all.
Oh,
No.
yeah, that would help. With yes or no questions, you kinda have to know a lot.
Yeah. It's not the Sirius star system, right? Is it Lyra? No.
Are they kind beings?
Yeah. It looks like they get some fearful reactions because of how they like verbally communicate. Like it sounds I'm getting like the ribbit and kind of that tonal thing that you would get from like a frog, but it's like long and drawn out. So it's like
Mhm.
a not a ribbit, it's like a and kind
Yeah.
of tonal that way.
Okay, I is something about their vibrational the tones of their vibration, uh, healing?
Yes. Thank you.
As soon as you made that sound, I was like, "This is, like, vibrational therapy."
Yes, thank you.
Cute! Yes, thank you. Okay, cool, I always wanted to say that.
Love it.
Okay, so can any human telepathically communicate with animals?
Yes, thank you.
Can any human telepathically communicate with other humans?
Yes, thank you.
Is the best way to practice telepathic communication with intention?
Yes, thank you.
So just kind of like, I'm connected with, you know, so and so. Um, oh, yeah. um, can any human communicate with their guides and access psychic gifts?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, buddies. I'm only asking questions to just reaffirm my beliefs.
That's okay.
But in a way, I'm like, I want our audience to hear that all they have to do is try.
Yes, thank you.
They're just like answering he's just like in the conversation. It's so cute.
Michael
Okay.
does this a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like he's saying yes still. That's
Yeah.
so cute. Okay, are dragons real?
Yes, thank you.
Do I have one or more with me right now?
Yes. Ooh, flicking my wrist around. Um, I'm seeing green and gold.
Yeah. That's cute. So crazy. Okay, ask them more questions about dragons. Listen to me just being bossy. I want you to think of some questions because I think that's a hard one for people to swallow.
Yeah. I think, did dragons exist on Earth? Yes, thank you. So, like those old portraits that we see, especially from like the 15s and 1600s, are those of real dragons? Yes, thank you. Is that why they're still with us in spirit today? No, thank you. Are those
No.
dragons on Earth versus dragons today different? Hmm, okay, interesting.
Interesting. That was a
Yeah,
no, just so you know, audience.
I don't know how I'm getting from Michael.
So, Megan, thank you so much for joining me. It's been super fun. I know we have to close it out right now, but I just wanted to thank you and thank you for being open and sharing with us. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is fun. I love doing these.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for keeping it fun.
Definitely.
Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as we did. Be sure to subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss a new episode. If you liked today's episode, please consider leaving a review to help the other psychics find their way here.